My name is Shannon Burge. I am a CDBG program specialist with the CDBG program here at HCD. I will be going through the single audit webinar that is part of the CDBG NOFA webinar series. So to start off, we're going to go into the general information. So what is a single audit? A single audit is an organization-wide financial statement and federal awards audit of a non-federal entity that expends $1 million or more of federal funds in 1 year. And this also can include fiscal year, not just 1 year, calendar year. A single audit is very important. It's a very important report for HCD to have to determine if an applicant has capacity to run the program and to see how well other federal funds are managed. Many of our grantees have other federal funds other than just CDBG. It also helps HCD learn more about your organization and how it manages everything. Per the CDBG NOFA, the single audit is a threshold item, so it is very important to make sure that you include your single audit if you have one, if you're required to file all the things. Some of the federal regulations that are in support for this and the importance of a single audit is 2 CFR 200 subpart F, which outlines the audit requirements beginning at 2 CFR 200.501B. And the scope of the audit can be found at 2 CFR 200.514. So the next few slides will just be talking about the contents of a single audit. So what is in a single audit report, independent auditor's report, the financial statements, schedule of expenditures, all these things, internal controls. The auditor's report on compliance for each major federal program, the annual financial report or the financial statement report. And just as a note for this one, if the comprehensive annual financial report and single audit reports are separate, both reports should be submitted to SCO, the State Controller's Office. And there's usually a management letter required if it's issued by the entity CPA. And then the last 3 items here that are in bold, these are the things that HCD staff are looking at when we are reviewing the uploaded single audit documentation. So we are looking for the findings and any questioned costs, the schedule of prior audit findings. And if there are no prior audit findings, please make sure that that is outlined for us. And if there are findings, you will be required to have a corrective action plan in place. So that will also need to be submitted as part of your application. So here's some filing information on single audits. So who has to file? As I clearly stated in the beginning slide, if you expend more than $1 million during the year or fiscal year, the organization will be responsible for filing. And this is all federal funding, and it does include funding outside of HCD and other HCD program funding, such as HOME, which is one of the biggest ones that many of our grantees have, in addition to CDBG. So when is this done? It's usually conducted annually or sometime at the end of the organization's fiscal year. It must be completed, though, within 9 months after the end of that fiscal year. So where does your single audit go? It needs to go to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse, FAC, FAC, and then the State Controller's Office, also known as SCO. It's due to SCO 9 months after the end of the organization's fiscal year. It's due to the FAC 30 days after receiving your auditor's report, or March 31st, whichever is earlier. Bottom line here, the sooner the better that you get your report into both of these places, the better off you're going to be. One of the biggest questions that we see is, what if I'm exempt from filing a single audit? And the good news is that the CDBG NOFA actually outlines this out. So per the NOFA, this requirement is not limited to federal funds administered by the department. If an applicant is currently not subject to single audit requirements, the applicant may be required to submit their last filed single audit for review. If an applicant is not required to submit an annual single audit, they must provide documentation of that exemption from SCO, and that will be required as part of your application. There is a section on there that you can make sure that you click the right drop-down box. And who can perform the single audit? Well, these are performed by independent auditors that are normally certified public accountants or CPAs in compliance with the Single Audit Act of 1997. One of the most important things with a CPA is making sure that your CPA has experience not only with federal funds, but also doing single audits, as not every CPA has this experience. It's very special. You are also not allowed to have someone within your organization to perform the single audit. It has to be outside, which is why you have to have a CPA come in. Independent auditors that perform these audits, they must regularly complete specific continuing education courses as required by GAGAs, the generally accepted government auditing standards, because of the specialized nature of this type of work. There are some consequences for not filing single audits, especially if you are required to submit one. So obviously for HCD, the applicant will not be eligible for funding until compliance has been achieved. And then with the government, if you are found to be non-compliant, they may withhold funds until everything is remediated, completely suspend or terminate the award, initiate suspension or debarment proceedings, which is a huge one because that is definitely a need when you are applying for federal funds to make sure that you are not debarred. As well as withholding further federal awards for the program, and they may even pursue other available legal actions. So please make sure that you file your single audit, especially if you're required to file one. So we talked about this a little bit, but we'll go into more detail now about findings and concerns. So findings and concerns happen if there are findings and or concerns in your most recently filed single audit. You will be required to submit a corrective action plan for these items to SCO. That same cap that is sent to SCO must be included as part of your application to HCD for your CDBG NOFA application. They do happen. It's totally okay. The best way to handle them is to get in front of that as soon as you find out about them from your CPA. Work with your CPA and within your organization to figure out a plan to remediate those issues as soon as possible. Here at HCD, we care about all the findings you have, not just the ones that relate to the specific program that you are applying under. Just to kind of bring to your attention, program staff will be checking for the remediation dates on your single audit cap. Actual hard dates need to be included on your corrective action plan. So again, just to reiterate, CDBG program staff will be checking for remediation dates on your single audit cap, your corrective action plan. If you have findings and or concerns, please make sure that there are actual dates of completion on your single audit cap, and that if you have a cap, that it is uploaded and submitted with your CDBG NOFA application. We do also talk about findings and concerns in the NOFA, just to kind of give the Cliff Notes version. Applicants must include the remediation plan agreement if there are single audit findings identified in that most recently filed audit. The applicant will be deemed ineligible for funding through CDBG until the findings are resolved or a remediation plan or agreement is established. We are looking at all findings. Remediation plans and agreements will be reviewed by the department for risk, and a risk determination will be made at the sole and absolute discretion of the department, and applications may be deemed ineligible for funding based on that determination. Again, any and all single audit findings are included in this risk evaluation. I know we already previously kind of went into this, but we are going to go into a little bit more depth of what HCD and the CDBG program review when it comes to the single audit. So for the 2025 NOFA, we will have a different required single audits, much like last year. So the required audit for our 2025 NOFA is to provide the fiscal year 23-24 single audit with a cap and or clearance letter if there are findings and concerns. Per the NOFA, the applicant must provide the department with its most recently filed single audit that was submitted to the State Controller's Office. We mainly are looking for fiscal year 23-24. However, the minimum requirement will be 22-23 with a cap and or clearance letter if, again, there are findings on that. And if a grantee is including the 22-23 single audit, we will need to see a letter from the auditor on their letterhead that they are working on the applicant's fiscal year 23-24 audit. And once that 23-24 audit is complete, that will need to be submitted to your assigned either program specialist or program rep to ensure that that is uploaded into the award file. We do have a threshold review since the single audit is a threshold item. So if a grantee is required to file a single audit, we will be looking for your single audit, and we will be reviewing the findings and any prior audit findings, as well as your corrective action plan if there are findings. We are also going to be looking for your corrective action plan and whether it is a clearance, a remediation plan, or a clearance letter. Your corrective action plan should include the following, the finding number per your report, what the finding was, the planned corrective action, the anticipated completion date, and it needs to be an actual date. In progress is not acceptable. And then for exempt jurisdictions, exempt from filing a single audit, we will be cross-checking with the State Controller's Office to ensure that you are in fact exempt from filing. So please make sure that you cross-check as well. So this is one of the things that we want to make sure that we really communicate with you that are watching this, that they're to really take your time when the application opens and you are filling in the single audit section, especially since it is a threshold item. It is one of the first things that we look at. So there's some common application errors such as selecting the wrong item from the dropdown. You could select that you did have to file and you upload the correct single audit, but then under the next dropdown, you hit there's no findings. So then it doesn't give you the prompt to upload your corrective action plan. So there are times where people will upload their single audit and then the next prompt they'll accidentally select no findings. And then when we go and review the single audit, when we see that no findings, but there really is, that's a problem. There are also times where people will, select that they do have findings, but then they don't upload their corrective action plan. And again, another common error that we see is that they mark that they are exempt from filing, but then we find that the applicant was actually required and they didn't include that documentation from SCO in their submission. It's really important to make sure that you take your time and you make sure that you have everything, double check your work. And one of the things that has happened in the past as well is uploading an annual audit instead of a single audit. And those are two very, very different reports. So an annual audit is a verification process of your organization's financial systems and statements, which will be reviewed for accuracy by the auditor. A single audit is the entire organization's financial operations and is way more detailed than an annual audit. The single audit actually is combined. It combines the annual financial statement audit with the additional audit coverage of federal funds. Just make sure that you upload the right report is really where we are getting at with this. And here are some reminders from HCD and the CDBG team. Make sure you double check your work. Please make sure that you give yourself plenty of time to check what you've uploaded and entered into the application prior to submitting, not just for this section for single audits, but everything. But I would say especially for the single audit and any of the other threshold sections that we have, please make sure that you double check your work, give yourself time, and make sure that you've checked everything before you hit submit, because no edits can be made after submission unless otherwise notified by CDBG program staff. Just please take your time. And for disqualification, applicants will be disqualified if the single audit is not uploaded and or has findings that are not included as part of the applications. Applicants that failed to disclose their findings on their most recently filed single audit. Again, same thing I mentioned previously on the other slides. Again, applicants that fail to disclose findings will be disqualified without exemption or appeal. And some resources and links for this PowerPoint. Please review our CDBG NOFA, which can be found in the e-Civis solicitation as well as the HCD website. Chapter 6 on financial management, which is part of our grants management manual that can also be found on our website. The Federal Audit Clearinghouse, the California State Controller Single Audit, and the federal regulations, 2 CFR 200, federal award management requirements, audit requirements, single audit requirements, and the scope of audit. Those are all there for you to review. And most of you should have the link to our CDBG website. And to find the NOFA, you'll hit the Notice of Funding and then hit Apply Now once it opens. And then there is a tab on the Grants Management Manual where you will find the financial management chapter and all tools and appendices. And then these are the other ones for the Federal Audit Clearinghouse, FAC.gov, the single audit section for SCO, and for the federal regulations, ECFR is your friend. Please make sure to follow HCD on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And thank you so much for listening to this webinar. If you have any questions, please email cdbg@hcd.ca.gov, which is our CDBG unit inbox. You may also contact your either CDBG program specialist or program representative with any questions that you may have about this. However, I will say with certainty, please email our unit inbox to get the best information. Thank you so much. Have a great day.